So this is Woodman here, and I want to talk to you about rejection being protection. And it took me a very long time to get this. Rejection is the way for the universe to steer us in the right direction, away from the things that aren't meant for us, and towards things that are. This can be hard to see in the moment, but by embracing the idea that rejection is protection, we can start to find comfort and peace in disappointment. Rejection can help you learn from your mistakes and improve your craft. For example, you might learn to change your ways and stop being stubborn. Rejection can help you identify what's working and what's not in your life and can bring you closer to what you're meant to receive. For example, in the biblical context, rejection can help you identify and surrender parts of yourself that you've held back. And rejection can also help you to handle setbacks and challenges, which is an important trait in the workplace. You can learn to view rejection as a learning opportunity and move forward, which can help you build a stronger sense of self and more positive mindset. So I remember a couple of years ago, I had a fiance, and she was a Pisces, and she was extremely arrogant at every level. All she ever talked about was herself, on and on. She prattled about herself, and I tolerated it. I put up with it. She was probably one of my very first encounters with what I would believe to be a narcissist. Though I hadn't read up much on the subject, and I failed to understand what that was and why I would need to run the other way. For this fiance, it was always her way or the highway. She would tell me things like, "You're the man, you decide." And then if I decided, then she would turn around and override and gaslight me, saying, "Well, you can't really want to do that, right? I mean, you're a smart guy. I mean, you're joking, right? Like, no reasonable person would want to do that. I've always viewed you as much smarter and better than that." And so, all in all, she would use this kind of language to manipulate the situation, and engineer herself to get the outcome she wanted by making the other possibilities sound like terrible ideas, and that I would never choose such a terrible idea. Before I knew it, she was calling just about every shot of what we would do or not do. And I realized that most of what she chose made me extremely unhappy. She constantly got into it with her coworkers as well. Whenever they wanted to do things that she didn't want to do, she would get them in trouble somehow, rat them out, somehow point out that they were violating rules or not following protocol. And I think we all realize in life that yes, there are the rules. Rules are meant to be followed. That's what makes things orderly. But there are also the rules, and that not every rule was meant to be enforced. For example, jaywalking. If you're a police officer, yes, it's a rule. There's a law. People who don't cross at the crosswalk could be arrested for jaywalking, and that's even happened in recent years, and some people have viewed that as a form of racial profiling. But when the officer goes to do that, let's say you actually enforce the jaywalking, yeah, it's officers are going to leave it alone because half the time you're going to get laughed at for arresting somebody for something like that. It's actually kind of bogus. Everyone's going to look at you like, don't you have better things to do? You know, it, Try to imagine this. Try to imagine, like, let's say you find a watch on the side of the road, and when you get it appraised, you find out the watch is worth $800. So now, technically speaking, under the IRS rules, you just earned income, right? You earned $800 worth of income for which no withholdings has happened. So think about that. Now, you have to report that to the IRS. Are you going to do that? I didn't think you would. So going back to my fiance, I just got tired of hearing her stories all the time. Like, it's like I'm like counting and keeping track. I'm like, by now she's moved to like 5 or 6 different offices, because maybe she's not getting along with certain people on this floor, not getting along with people on this floor, because quite frankly, every time she turned on people, they didn't want to work with her anymore because she was constantly doing the wrong things. Don't get me wrong. If you get into issues with your coworkers once, twice, then I'm going to defend you. I'm going to say, oh, you know what? Maybe you didn't deserve that. But if you find that 8, 9, 10 times you're constantly being the one that nobody wants to deal with anymore, it's because you're doing something so terribly wrong that you just can't get along with your coworkers. And so this is a very powerful lesson that needs to be learned is I realized that it had to come to an end. And when it did, it was over something stupid and trivial that, I think she said, "Oh, you made soup with your child's mother or something like that." Like, I was like, "Okay, and what are you saying? You saying I slept with her? Are you saying I cheated with her?" "No, you made soup with her." So wait a minute. Okay, so you're upset and livid because I made soup, like with my child's mother, who I'm always going to have in my life because we have a child together, several children together. There wasn't anything romantic about it. It wasn't anything special. It was just I needed her to help me make the soup. But she found this to be some sort of deal breaker. So okay, now think about that. You going back to the rejections protection thing. That's just not a good match. That whole relationship was not a good match. And I had to eventually come to realize that. I was so busy trying to make things work that didn't realize that the fact that it's not working is a strong sign it's not the relationship for me. So sometimes rejection can redirect you towards something better, which is suited to your needs and goals. I've gone out with other people after her, and they've never had a problem with, "Oh, you made soup with your child's mother." Like, people who hear that like laugh. Like, they're like, "Is that a thing? Is that really a thing?" So it just wasn't right with that person. That person had whatever hang up she had. I don't know what it was. She thought, I'm being, stepping out, going to make that soup with someone else. That's a problem. That's a real problem. And so experiencing rejection can teach you steps to grow and to become aware and become adaptable. Each rejection can be an opportunity to learn more about yourself, improve your skills, understand the situations you put yourself in, and determine, whether you were right or wrong in a situation, you know, and be prepared for future challenges. In this particular case, I was not in the wrong, and people eventually came to realize that, what, that was just not the right fit. You know, you're going to need someone who's more understanding, someone who's not going to be childish or petulant, you know, over such a trivial situation. Really? Um, what else? Uh, you know, trying to be scared of rejection, is basically trying to insulate yourself from heartbreak or pain, right? And sometimes you need that heartbreak and pain. Sometimes you need to understand, that not every situation is going to work out great. So that's going to make you more resilient, right? You want to encourage authenticity. You want things to push you to be more authentic and true to yourself. You want things that focus you to direct on what you truly want rather than what you think you should want. This can lead to more genuine and fulfilling experiences in the long run. So, in other words, you should realize that if you're not growing, if you're not advancing, if you're not getting what you want out of a situation, out of a person, out of a place, then that's a good sign to get out of there. And so that rejection as protection helps reframe your experiences in a way that emphasizes growth and positive outcomes. That ultimately, you have to come to realize that if something's broke and it refuses to be fixed, don't fix it. Stop trying to salvage everything. That may be an inner child wounding that maybe you haven't gotten over. And so, in a sense, maybe you have an abandonment issue. Maybe you have an issue with you feel like, your partnerships don't work out and that you're like, I want it to work out. I want to make it work out. But that wasn't the one to work out. And you shouldn't be forced to be in a painful situation just to make things work. If you're not comfortable, if you're not happy, you're allowed to not be comfortable and you're allowed to not be happy. And at some point, you realize enough is enough. When something wants that badly to be out of your life, you let it go, you let it flow, you move forward. There's plenty of other relationships that are far better than these situationships that we can get ourselves into. Once you kind of realize that, once you realize that it's not all about limiting yourself to a few options that you know are going to end up being trash, that you then realize this is my life and I'm in control. If I have to be alone, I'll be alone. If I have to be with someone else, I'll be with someone else. Whatever the outcome, it's best if you realize that I'm okay with or without it. And so that as a result, if you're all bent out of shape because you lose something and you're without it, then that's a codependency. And being codependency means that you have unresolved issues and you need to do work on yourself. Once you reach the point where you can get out of those codependencies, you can get past that trauma bond, you can get past those childhood issues, then you can begin to live life, because at that point you aren't desperate for anything, you aren't tolerating anything. You realize that you have so much to offer the world, and whatever will come one way or another. You don't have to settle. For years I always wondered about the settle. And I was like, what do they mean settle? Settle. I mean, I was like, in relationships there's got to be some give and take, right? But just because there's give and take in relationships doesn't mean that you should subject yourself to a relationship that's harming you or damaging you. You don't have to put up with that. Like, particularly if it's domestic violence, like saying, "Oh, well, he's such a great guy, but he has these moments." No, no, that's not how you think about it at all. If he's a great guy, he's a great guy. If he's having moments, he's not a great guy. That's not how that works. No one should be engaging in domestic terrorism, and by domestic terrorism, I'm meaning someone who plays mind games with another person. No one should be engaging in domestic violence, meaning that you should be putting your hands on another person, and then the person says, "Oh, I said something slick. I pushed them to do it." No, you don't deserve that. Nobody should be touching anybody. Not like that. Not violently, right? So don't rationalize things away. Don't explain things away. You deserve better, and you should seek better, and you should have faith in the universe, because that's the biggest thing, is you have to have faith in the universe as well, that the universe knows what it's doing. God is pushing these things out of your life because God wants better for you. If you keep pulling those things back into your life, you are resisting God. You are going against God when God is trying to help you. And so you have to come to realize at some point that you may not want to be wed to the outcomes of situations that you think that you feel like things should turn out in. Like, you're trying to force it, but it's not meant for you. And so stop forcing it. And then the outcome that you do get isn't going to be what you were expecting, but it will be far, far better than what you've been receiving. I hope that this message was helpful to you. If you're new here, welcome aboard your family. If you're returning, thank you for your support on the channel. I'm always glad to have you around. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, may the Most High God protect you and bless you and keep you healthy and wealthy and safe and protected. And on that note, Woodman out. I love you. I love you. Have a good one. Bye.